The emergency lights bathed the Galactic Council chamber in deep red. He-Jin stood among representatives from 200 different worlds, each one more terrified than the last. The massive holographic display at the center showed the same nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for 300 years. Vex-Thul, the cyborg dragon of the cosmos. The creature was enormous beyond imagination. 3 kilometers of twisted metal and living flesh merged into something that should not exist. Its wings could eclipse entire moons. Its eyes glowed with the light of dead stars. Half of its body was organic dragon, scales darker than space itself. The other half was pure machine, weapons and technology from civilizations that no longer existed. Councillor Rixall floated above the assembly, his transparent form shimmering with distress. He was a being of pure thought, one of the oldest creatures in the known galaxy. When he spoke, everyone heard his voice inside their minds. 17 champions have fallen, Rixall said. His mental voice carried the weight of centuries. 17 of our greatest warriors sent to face the dragon. None survived longer than 3 minutes. The hologram shifted, showing recordings of the battles. A massive warrior from the Krulon Empire, wielding plasma weapons that could destroy planets. Dead in 2 minutes. A psychic assassin from Theta Prime who could move faster than light. Dead in 100 seconds. A mechanical war god from the Silicon Collective, built specifically to fight Vex-Thul. Destroyed in 90 seconds. Each death was the same. The dragon would ask a question. The warrior would answer, then fire in darkness. "What does it want?" asked Ambassador Toll from the waterworld of Aquilas. Her voice bubbled with fear. "The same thing it has always wanted," Rixall replied. "It demands that each species send their greatest warrior to face it in single combat. If we refuse, it will consume our homeworlds. It has already destroyed 43 inhabited planets to prove it is not making empty threats." He-Jin felt her hands trembling. She was Earth's ambassador, the first human to ever stand in this ancient chamber. Her species had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago. They were the newest members, the youngest civilization. Most of the older species still thought of humans as primitive children, playing with technology they barely understood. "The dragon has now issued its challenge to Earth," Rixall continued, and every eye in the chamber turned to He-Jin. "You have 7 days to send your champion to the dragon's void, or Earth will burn." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species argued that Earth should be exempted, that humans were too new, too weak. Others said the rules applied to everyone. A few suggested that this might be mercy, that a quick death for humanity was better than the slow decline that awaited primitive species. He-Jin wanted to scream at them. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her face calm. She had learned that lesson from her childhood friend Daeho. Show nothing. Feel everything. But show nothing. "Earth will send a champion," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. "You understand what this means?" Rixall asked gently. "We have sent our greatest warriors, beings who have trained for centuries, soldiers who have won 1,000 battles, heroes who have saved entire civilizations. All of them died. What can humanity possibly offer that we have not already tried?" He-Jin smiled, and it was not a happy smile. "Something different," she said. 3 days later, Daeho arrived at the council station. He came alone, carrying only a small bag. He wore simple clothes, not armor. He carried no visible weapons. When he walked into the preparation chamber where He-Jin waited, he looked like a man going on vacation, not to his death. "You look well," Daeho said, smiling at his old friend. "You look insane," He-Jin replied. She wanted to hug him. She wanted to tell him to run. Instead, she kept her distance. If she touched him, she might never let go. "The council thinks I am insane too," Daeho said. He set down his bag and walked to the window. Outside, the neutron star Kepler 442 spun in the darkness, its surface crackling with energy. "They have been very polite about it, but I can see it in their eyes." "They have sent their best warriors," He-Jin said, "soldiers who have fought wars for hundreds of years. And you have never even been in a real battle." This was true. Daeho was part of Earth's Special Operations Division, but he was not a traditional soldier. He was what his commanders called a strategic philosopher. His job was to think differently, to find solutions that others missed. He had resolved 17 conflicts without firing a single shot. He had prevented 3 wars with nothing but words and patience. But he had never faced anything like Vex-Thul. "Show me the recordings again," Daeho said. He-Jin activated the holographic display. They watched the 17 champions die. Each one was different. Each one was powerful. Each one was completely destroyed. You have watched these 50 times already, He-Jin said. 53, Daeho corrected. And I need to watch them more. What are you looking for? The question, Daeho said. The dragon asks each warrior the same question before the fight begins. What do you fight for? Every single champion answered differently, but they all died the same way. He-Jin had noticed this too. The Krulon warrior had answered for glory and honor. The psychic assassin had said for my species and our survival. The mechanical war god had stated for the elimination of chaos and the establishment of order. Different answers. Same result, death. What will you answer? He-Jin asked. Daeho smiled. I will tell you on the ship. There is something else you should know, He-Jin said. She activated her personal data pad, making sure no one else could intercept the signal. My sister Subin has been analyzing the dragon's technology. She is not supposed to have access to this information, but she is very good at hacking things. What did she find? The dragon is not just a monster. Its cybernetic components contain fragments of consciousness. Actual thinking, feeling beings trapped inside the machine parts. She thinks Vexthul might have been something else before it became what it is now. Daeho's eyes lit up with interest. Something else what? She does not know. The data is too fragmented. But she thinks the dragon might be in pain. A 3-kilometer monster that has destroyed 43 worlds is in pain, Daeho said slowly. And no one thought to ask if it needs help instead of fighting it? Everyone who gets close to it dies, Daeho. There is no conversation. Just the question, then death. Then I will have to be very good at answering questions, Daeho said. The day before departure, Daeho made a strange request. He asked the council to send something with him to the dragon's void, not a weapon, not advanced technology, not armor or shields or anything that might help him survive. He asked for his grandmother's tea set. The council thought he had lost his mind. Hyojin knew better. She had grown up with Daeho in a small village on Earth. She had watched him spend hours with his grandfather, learning the old ways, the tea ceremony, the meditation, the philosophy that said true strength was not about defeating enemies but understanding them. They think you are crazy, Hyojin said as they stood at the docking bay. The transport ship waited behind them, ready to carry Daeho to his death. Good, Daeho said. Crazy might be exactly what the galaxy needs right now. He picked up his bag and turned to board the ship. He-Jin grabbed his arm. Come back, she said. Please. Daeho looked at her with eyes that were far too calm for someone about to face certain death. I will do my best, he said. But He-Jin, if I do not come back, tell them something for me. Tell them that I was not trying to defeat the dragon. I was trying to understand it. Then he was gone, walking up the ramp into the transport ship. The door closed behind him. He-Jin watched through the window as the ship detached from the station and fired its engines, beginning the journey to the dragon's void. In 7 days, her best friend would be dead. Everyone knew this. Everyone had seen the recordings. No one survived Vexthul. But as she watched the ship disappear into the darkness, He-Jin remembered something Daeho's grandfather had once told them when they were children. The warrior who seeks victory will find only battle, but the warrior who seeks understanding might find something greater. She hoped the old man was right, because understanding was all Daeho had to fight with, and the galaxy was watching. The transport ship Horizon's End moved through hyperspace like a needle through fabric, stitching together the vast distances between stars. Inside his small cabin, Daeho sat in meditation, his breathing slow and steady. He had been sitting this way for 6 hours. Captain Velcor stood in the doorway watching the human with confusion. The captain was a Velcorian, a species that resembled what humans might call a mantis mixed with liquid mercury. He had transported 42 warriors to the dragon's void over the past century. He had watched them all prepare for battle in different ways. Some had trained endlessly, practicing combat forms until their bodies moved faster than thought. Some had upgraded their weapons, adding new technology and more power. Some had meditated like this human, but they had been preparing their minds for war, visualizing victory, building their mental shields. Daeho was doing none of these things. What are you thinking about? Velcor asked. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Daeho opened his eyes slowly. I am thinking about my grandfather. Was he a great warrior? He was a farmer, Deho said, smiling. But he taught me everything important. Velkor's body rippled with confusion. A farmer? The galaxy sends you to face the most dangerous being in existence, and you think about farming? May I tell you a story? Deho asked. The captain had time. They would not reach the dragon's void for another 4 days. He folded his limbs and settled into what might have been a sitting position. When I was 7 years old, Deho began, I found a bird with a broken wing in our village. I wanted to help it, but every time I got close, it tried to attack me. It was afraid and in pain, so it fought everyone who came near. I asked my grandfather what to do. What did he say? He told me to sit very still near the bird. Not to move, not to try to touch it. Just sit and be present, so I did. I sat there for 3 hours. My legs hurt. I got bored. But I stayed, and eventually the bird stopped seeing me as a threat. It let me come close. I fixed its wing and it flew away. Velkor was silent for a moment. You think the dragon is like this bird? I think everything that fights is afraid of something, Deho said. And I think the galaxy has forgotten how to be still. Over the next days, Deho established a routine that baffled the crew. He woke early and performed slow, deliberate exercises that looked more like dance than combat training. He spent hours reading poetry from Earth, ancient words about nature and understanding. He prepared tea using his grandmother's tea set, following rituals that were thousands of years old. He did not touch a single weapon. On the 3rd day, a message came through on the quantum communication channel. It was marked as unauthorized, which meant someone had broken through military encryption to send it. Deho knew who it was before he opened the message. Zubin's face appeared in the hologram. She looked tired. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red from staring at screens too long. She was his younger sister, a quantum physicist who worked for Earth's Deep Space Research Division. You are not supposed to contact me, Deho said, but he was smiling. You are not supposed to go get yourself killed, but here we are, Zubin replied. I hacked the communication array. We have maybe 3 minutes before they trace this signal, so listen carefully. Deho leaned forward. I have been studying the dragon's cybernetic components, Zubin said quickly. The technology is old, older than any civilization in the current galactic records. I found fragments of data in the metal itself, like memories burned into the structure. What kind of memories? I do not know exactly. The language is something we have never seen before. But I ran pattern analysis on the energy signatures. Deho, the cybernetic parts are not controlling the organic parts. They are prison. The dragon is not a weapon that was built. It is a being that was trapped. Deho felt something click in his mind, like a puzzle piece finding its place. How long has it been trapped? Based on the decay patterns in the quantum matrices, millions of years, maybe longer. Zubin leaned closer to the camera. Everyone who has studied the dragon thinks it is a monster. But what if it is a prisoner? What if it has been asking for help and everyone just tried to kill it instead? The signal began to break up. Someone had found the hack. Come home, brother, Zubin said, her voice distorting. Please just come home. Then the connection died. Deho sat in silence for a long time, a prisoner. Millions of years trapped in metal and pain, and the only visitors it received came with weapons and war cries. No wonder it killed them all. That night, Velkor found Deho in the observation deck staring at the stars. I have a question, the captain said, and I hope you will not think me rude for asking. Ask anything. Why do humans always think they can fix things? Deho laughed. It was a good question. We do not think we can fix everything, he said. But we think trying to fix things is better than just accepting that they are broken. Is that strange? Every species thinks their way is best, Velkor said. The Krulons think strength is the answer to all problems. The Theta Psychics believe perfect knowledge brings perfect solutions. The Silicon Collective trusts only in logic and efficiency, and all of them have failed against the dragon. What do you think? Deho asked. Velkor's body shimmered, a sign of deep thought in his species. I think the dragon has been asking a question that no one has been able to answer correctly. What do you fight for? Seems simple, but maybe the answer is not simple at all. What did the other warriors say? I was there for 12 of them, Velkor said. The Krulon warrior said he fought for honor and glory. The psychic said she fought for the survival of her species. One warrior said he fought for justice. Another said she fought for the weak who could not fight for themselves. All good answers, all noble reasons. But all wrong, Deho said softly. Yes, all wrong. Velcor moved closer. Human Deho, what will you say when the dragon asks you this question? Deho turned from the stars to face the captain. I will tell the truth, which is, I do not fight for anything, Deho said. I came to talk. Velcor's body froze completely. In his species, this was a sign of extreme shock. You cannot be serious. Why not? Every warrior has tried fighting. None of them succeeded. Maybe the answer is not to fight at all. The dragon will kill you in seconds. Maybe, Deho agreed. But maybe it is tired of everyone trying to kill it. Maybe it wants something different. On the final day before reaching the dragon's void, Deho made one more request that confused everyone. He asked for an escape pod to be programmed with specific coordinates. The pod would follow him wherever he went, maintaining a distance of exactly 100 meters. What will be in this pod? Velcor asked. My grandmother's tea set, Deho said. You are bringing tea to a battle with a cosmic dragon. I am not bringing tea to a battle, Deho corrected gently. I am bringing an invitation to a conversation. Velcor had transported warriors for over 100 years. He had seen courage and fear, hope and despair, but he had never seen anything quite like this human, who treated certain death like a social visit. You really believe you can talk to it? The captain asked. I believe no one has tried, Deho said. Everyone sees a monster. Maybe there is something else underneath. The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the dragon's void. Through the viewport, they could see the massive nebula field stretching before them. It was filled with the wreckage of destroyed civilizations, the corpses of dead warships, the shattered remains of 43 worlds. And somewhere in the center waiting was Vexthul. The entire galaxy was watching through quantum-linked sensors. 200 worlds held their breath. Hyjin stood in the council chamber, her hands clenched so tight her nails drew blood. Subin sat at her workstation on Earth, surrounded by screens showing every angle of the dragon's void. Deho stood in the airlock, wearing a simple environmental suit. Behind him in the programmed escape pod, his grandmother's tea set waited. He thought about his grandfather's words, spoken so many years ago in a small village garden. True strength is not in the sword, but in understanding why the sword exists. And the greatest warriors are those who know when to put the sword down. The airlock opened. Deho stepped into his small combat shuttle. The escape pod detached and took its position, following him like a faithful dog. Good luck, human, Velcor said over the communication channel. Thank you, Captain, Deho replied. But I am not looking for luck. I am looking for understanding. The shuttle's engines fired. Deho flew alone into the dragon's void, carrying nothing but questions and tea. Behind him, the galaxy watched and waited for another champion to die. The dragon's void was beautiful in a terrible way. Deho's shuttle drifted through fields of debris that had once been proud civilizations. A broken palace from a world that no longer existed spun slowly past his window. The hull of a warship the size of a city floated nearby, its crew still entombed inside, frozen in the moment of their death. This was a graveyard. This was where hope came to die. The shuttle's sensors screamed warnings. Something massive was approaching, something that made the ship's instruments go haywire just from its presence. The temperature inside the shuttle dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Frost formed on the windows. Deho kept his hands steady on the controls. His heart was beating fast, but his breathing remained slow. Fear was natural. Panic was a choice. His grandfather had taught him that. Then he saw it. Vexthul emerged from behind a shattered moon, and Deho understood why 17 champions had failed. The dragon was not just large. It was impossibility made real. 3 kilometers of nightmare, half-organic beast, half-mechanical horror. Its scales were darker than the space between stars. Its cybernetic parts glowed with energy that should not exist. Wings spread wide enough to eclipse suns. Eyes like dying galaxies burning with light that hurt to see. Weapons built into its body that could crack planets. Technology from civilizations that had mastered reality itself, now fused with living flesh that had survived for millions of years. The dragon moved, and space itself seemed to bend around it. Deho's shuttle systems failed. One by one, his engines went dark. Life support flickered. Communications died. He was drifting now, helpless, a tiny speck before an ancient god. This was the moment when champions activated their weapons. This was when they launched their attacks. hoping to strike before the dragon could react. This was when they fought. Deho did nothing. He sat in his failing shuttle, hands in his lap, and waited. The dragon came closer. Its massive head, large enough to swallow his entire ship, moved through the void until it was directly in front of him. Those terrible eyes focused on the tiny human inside the metal shell. Then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It vibrated through the hull, through his bones, through his thoughts. It spoke in every language simultaneously: Korean, English, Velkorian, languages that had died millions of years ago, languages that would not exist for millions of years to come. Another champion comes to die. The words carried weight beyond sound. They carried the exhaustion of ages, the loneliness of eternity, the anger of endless repetition. What do you fight for, human? This was the question. This was the test that 17 warriors had failed. Deho could see them in his mind. The Krulon shouting about glory, the psychic speaking of survival, the mechanical warrior proclaiming the need for order, all dead, all wrong. Deho activated his emergency suit. The shuttle had no power left, but the suit had its own small battery. Enough for a few hours in the void. He opened the manual airlock and stepped out into space. The cold hit him like a physical blow. The suit's shields flickered to life, creating a small bubble of survivable environment around him. It would not last long. Nothing lasted long this close to Vexthul. The dragon watched him with those terrible eyes. Deho bowed. A formal bow, the kind his grandfather had taught him, the kind you give to someone you respect. I do not fight for anything, he said. His suit translated his words into radio waves that somehow the dragon could hear. I came to talk. Silence. The dragon's eyes, which had been burning with expected violence, flickered. Changed. For the first time in 3,000 years, something unexpected had happened. Talk? The word rumbled through space like thunder through mountains. Champions do not talk. They attack. They defend. They die. I know, Deho said. I watched the recordings. 17 warriors, 17 battles, 17 deaths in less than 3 minutes each. Very efficient. You mock me? No, Deho said honestly. I observe. There is a difference. He activated his wrist control. Behind him, the escape pod that had been following his shuttle came forward. It opened, and inside was his grandmother's tea set. The ancient ceramic cups, the simple pot, the traditional tools for a ceremony that was thousands of years old. What is this? The dragon asked. An invitation, Deho said. I would like to share tea with you. The galaxy was watching. On the council station, every representative stood frozen in shock. This was not battle. This was not strategy. This was madness. Heejin whispered to herself, What are you doing? Subin, watching from Earth, understood first. He is doing what no one else thought to do. He is treating it like a person. The dragon stared at the tea set. Its massive form shimmered and something impossible happened. The air around Deho's small survival bubble rippled and warped. Reality bent in ways that made his eyes hurt. Then standing before him in the bubble was a figure. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift between flesh and metal. Its eyes still glowed with that terrible light, but now they were in a face that could show expression. The dragon had created an avatar small enough to fit in Deho's tiny sphere of survivable space. You are either the bravest being I have ever met, the avatar said, or the most foolish. Probably both, Deho admitted. He gestured to the space in front of him. Will you sit? The avatar hesitated. Hesitation. Another thing that had never happened before. Then it folded itself into a sitting position, mirroring Deho's posture. Deho began the tea ceremony. His hands moved with practiced precision, following rituals that his grandmother had taught him, that her grandmother had taught her, going back through generations of his family. Boil the water, warm the pot, measure the leaves, pour with respect. The dragon's avatar watched in silence. This is a ceremony from my world, Deho explained as he worked. It is very old. The purpose is not the tea itself, though the tea is good. The purpose is the moment, being present, sharing time with another being without expectation or demand. Why? The avatar asked. Because connection matters more than conquest, Deho said simply. He poured tea into 2 cups. The liquid was impossibly still in the zero gravity, held in place by the surface tension and the careful way he poured. He offered one cup to the avatar. The dragon's manifestation looked at the cup like it was a weapon it did not understand. "I have existed for millions of years," it said slowly. "I have fought thousands of battles. I have destroyed champions from every species in this galaxy. And you offer me tea?" "Yes," Deho said. "Because every warrior you have faced came to prove something. I came to understand something." "Understand what?" Deho took a sip of his tea. It was perfect despite everything. His grandmother would have been proud. You ask every champion the same question. "What do you fight for?" And every single one gives you an answer about external things, glory, species, justice, order, all noble causes, all reasons to fight. "Yes," the dragon said. "And they were all wrong." "Why were they wrong?" Deho asked. The avatar's form flickered. For a moment, Deho could see through it, see the pain underneath, see the cracks in the armor. "Because the question is not what you fight for," the dragon said quietly. "The question is why you fight at all." Deho nodded slowly. "Every civilization you have tested sees you as an enemy to defeat, a challenge to overcome, a monster to slay. But you are not testing their strength, are you?" "No. You are testing their wisdom." The avatar was silent for a long moment. It reached out with one shifting hand and took the cup of tea. It did not drink. It simply held it, feeling the warmth, the weight, the simple existence of something offered without violence. "I have been alone for so long," the dragon said, and its voice was very small now. Nothing like the thunder that had announced its presence. "I have asked my question for 3,000 years. Thousands of warriors have come, all of them ready to fight, none of them ready to understand. What happens when someone gives the right answer?" Deho asked. The dragon's avatar looked up at him, and in those glowing eyes, Deho saw something that shocked him more than the dragon's size, more than its power, more than anything else he had witnessed. He saw hope. "I have been waiting for someone to ask me that," the dragon said. "For millions of years I have been waiting for someone to wonder what I want instead of what they want from me." Deho set down his teacup. He looked directly into those burning eyes. "Then let me ask you the question no one else has," he said. "Vexthul, dragon of the cosmos, terror of the galaxy. What do you fight for?" The avatar's form flickered violently. The dragon's massive true body, still visible beyond the bubble, shuddered. Energy crackled along its cybernetic components. For a moment, Deho thought he had made a terrible mistake. Then the avatar spoke, and its voice broke like something that had been holding itself together for far too long. "I do not want to fight anymore," it whispered. "I just want to stop. I just want the pain to end. I just want someone to see that I am not a monster. I am a prisoner." The galaxy heard these words. 200 civilizations listening through quantum sensors heard the most terrifying being in existence admit that it was suffering. And Deho, sitting in a bubble of survival surrounded by the void, offered the dragon more tea and said the words that would change everything. "Then let me help you." The dragon's avatar sat across from Deho, holding a cup of tea it had not yet tasted. Around them, the void stretched infinite and cold. Inside their small bubble of warmth, something ancient was finally breaking. "Help me," the dragon repeated. The word sounded foreign in its mouth, like a language it had forgotten how to speak. "You are a human. Your species learned to leave your planet less than 200 years ago. I have existed since before your son was born. What help could you possibly offer?" "The help of listening," Deho said. "Sometimes that is enough." The avatar was quiet for a long time. Its form flickered and shifted, unstable, as if the dragon was struggling with something internal. Finally it spoke. "I was not always this," it said. "I was not always a weapon, not always a monster. What were you?" The dragon's eyes dimmed, lost in memory. "I was a creation of the progenitors." "Do you know this word?" Deho shook his head. "No, of course not. They existed millions of years before your species drew its first breath. The progenitors were the first civilization to achieve perfect harmony between technology and consciousness. They mastered the physical universe. They could reshape reality with thought. They could have become gods. But they did not?" "No," the dragon said. "Because they learned something important. Power without wisdom is destruction. Technology without understanding is a weapon pointed at yourself." They had reached the peak of advancement, and they looked down at the galaxy and saw all the civilizations climbing toward the same peak. all making the same mistakes the progenitors had barely avoided. The avatar's form solidified slightly, as if the memory gave it strength. So they created me, a guardian, a test. I was given a simple purpose. Watch the galaxy. As new civilizations rise, test them. If they have evolved beyond primitive violence, give them the progenitor's gift. The knowledge, the technology, the wisdom to use power correctly. And if they have not evolved, Deho asked quietly, then I was to destroy their champions and move on. Wait for the next civilization. Wait for the next test. The dragon's voice carried infinite sadness. The progenitors believed that any civilization still focused on conquest and violence was not ready for great power. So I asked my question, what do you fight for? And I listened to the answer. Deho began to understand. You are not testing their strength. You are testing their philosophy. Yes, champions come with weapons and war cries. They speak of glory, honor, survival, justice, all external goals, all reasons that require defeating something or someone. But the progenitors wanted to find a civilization that had learned the most important lesson, which is, the dragon looked directly at Deho, that the greatest strength is knowing when not to fight at all. The words hung in the air between them. Deho thought about his grandfather, teaching him about the bird with the broken wing, teaching him that being still was sometimes braver than action, teaching him that understanding was more powerful than conquest. How long have you been testing? Deho asked. 3 million years, the dragon said. 3 million years of waiting, watching civilizations rise, watching them send their champions, watching them fail, again and again and again. That is a long time to be alone. You do not understand, the dragon said, and now its voice carried an edge of desperation. I am not just alone. I am trapped. Look at me, human. Really look, Deho looked. Not at the avatar, but beyond it, at the dragon's true form floating in the void. 3 kilometers of nightmare, half flesh, half machine. He looked closer at the cybernetic components, remembering what Subin had discovered. The metal parts are not enhancements, he said slowly. They are a cage, yes. The dragon's avatar stood suddenly, the teacup floating forgotten in the zero gravity. The progenitors built me to last forever. They gave me immortality, power, purpose, but they also gave me imprisonment. The cybernetic components keep me alive. They give me strength, but they also hold me here in this void, unable to leave, unable to die, unable to do anything except wait for someone to pass the test. You are a prisoner, Deho said. I am a prisoner, the dragon confirmed. And the consciousness fragments trapped in my cybernetic parts? Those are pieces of the progenitors themselves. They volunteered to be part of me, to guide me, to help me judge wisely. But something went wrong. The technology degraded over millions of years. Now they are trapped too, awake, aware, in constant pain, unable to communicate, unable to die. The horror of it settled over Deho like ice. Millions of years. Conscious beings trapped in metal, suffering, while the dragon they were supposed to guide slowly went mad from loneliness and purpose without end. Why did you not tell the champions this? Deho asked. Why not explain? Because the test must be pure, the dragon said. Its voice was bitter. The progenitors programmed me with restrictions. I can only give certain information. I can only act in certain ways. I must ask the question. I must judge the answer. If they fail, I must destroy them. If they pass, I can finally share the truth and give them the gift. What gift? The dragon's avatar turned away. The locations of the progenitor vaults, hidden throughout the galaxy. Technology that could solve every problem your civilizations face. Energy, medicine, understanding of reality itself. But only a civilization wise enough to pass my test can be trusted with such power. And in 3 million years, no one has passed? No one. The dragon's shoulders slumped. They all fail in the same way. They hear my question and think I am asking what cause they serve. But I am asking why they believe violence is the answer. Why they assume fighting is necessary. Why they cannot imagine another way. Deho poured more tea. His hands were steady even though his mind was racing. You said if someone passes, you can share the truth. What else happens? The dragon turned back to face him. Its eyes were bright with something that might have been tears if dragons could cry. If someone passes, the test is complete. My purpose is fulfilled. The restrictions the progenitors placed on me will release. The consciousness fragments trapped in my components will finally be free to move on to whatever comes after life. The dragon's voice became very small. I can finally rest. You mean die? Yes. I have been alive for millions of years, human. I have watched countless civilizations rise and fall. I have destroyed thousands of champions. I have been alone with my pain and my duty for longer than your mind can comprehend. I am so very tired. I do not want to be a monster anymore. I just want peace. On the council station, Hijin was crying. She understood now. The galaxy had been sending warriors to fight a test they could not win with weapons. They had been trying to defeat something that was begging to be freed. On Earth, Subin sat frozen at her workstation. The quantum sensors had picked up everything. Every word. Every revelation. She had been right. The dragon was a prisoner. But on the edge of the dragon's void, something else was happening. Admiral Crix of the Krulon Empire sat in his flagship, surrounded by 300 warships from 17 different species. We have the dragon distracted, he said to his commanders. The human has bought us time. The monster is focused on conversation. It is vulnerable. We may never have this chance again. But the human, one commander started. The human is dead regardless, Crix interrupted. They all die. But if we strike now, we can destroy Vexthul. We can end the threat. Launch all weapons. The war fleet moved forward. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, all the firepower that 17 species could gather, now aimed at the dragon while it was distracted by a human and a tea ceremony. In the council chamber, Hyojin saw the fleet moving on the tactical display. Her heart stopped. No, she whispered. No, do not do this. She activated the emergency communication channel. This is Earth Ambassador Hijin. I am ordering you to stand down. The dragon is not attacking. We are making progress. Progress? Admiral Crix's voice came back. The dragon has destroyed 43 worlds. It has killed thousands of champions. And you want us to trust that your human can talk it into surrendering? We have a tactical advantage. We are taking it. You do not understand what you are doing, Hyojin shouted. But she knew it was too late. In the bubble with the dragon, Deho saw the avatar's eyes suddenly widen. The dragon's massive true form turned, looking at something in the distance. What is it? Deho asked. The dragon's avatar looked at him with eyes full of sorrow and rage and something that might have been heartbreak. Your species comes for understanding, it said quietly. But the others come for war. Ships are approaching. Weapons charging. They think I am distracted. They think they can destroy me while I am talking to you. Deho felt his blood turn to ice. Can they? No, the dragon said. I am immortal. Their weapons will fail, and the protocol is clear. If I am attacked while testing a champion, I must defend myself. I must destroy the attackers, and its voice broke. I must destroy their homeworlds. All 17 species that sent ships. Billions of lives. Because they could not wait. Because they could not trust. The dragon's avatar began to fade. Its massive true body in the void started to glow with building energy. Weapons that could crack planets charged to life. I am sorry, Deho of Earth, the dragon said. You were different. You were kind. You understood. But the test has failed. The others have made their choice. And I must follow my programming. Wait, Deho shouted. But he already knew what he had to do. He stood in his bubble and made a choice that would shock the galaxy. Deho looked at the fading avatar, at the dragon's true form beginning to glow with terrible power, at the approaching war fleet in the distance. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, all pointed at a being that had existed for millions of years and could not die. Everyone expected him to run, to use his remaining suit power to get away from the blast zone, to save himself while the galaxy burned. Instead, he deactivated his protective shield. The void rushed in immediately. Cold that could freeze atoms, radiation that could burn through matter, the absolute nothing of space that would kill a human in seconds. But Deho did not die immediately. His suit had maybe 30 seconds of emergency life support left, 30 seconds of consciousness before the end. He used those seconds to push himself out of the bubble into open space, directly between the dragon and the approaching fleet. What are you doing? The dragon's voice thundered. Deho activated his suit's communication system. It broadcast on every frequency to every ship, to every world watching through the quantum sensors. If you want to kill the dragon, he said, his voice already weakening from the cold. "You will have to kill me first, and if you do that, you prove that we have not learned anything. You prove that the progenitors were right to lock their knowledge away. You prove that we are still just children playing with weapons we do not understand." Admiral Crix heard this from his flagship. "The human is dying anyway. All weapons fire." But Hee-Jin was faster. She had spent 5 years building relationships with every species on the council. She had learned their codes, their protocols, their override systems. She activated her diplomatic override and sent an emergency signal that could not be ignored. "This is Earth Ambassador Hee-Jin, speaking under the ancient accord of first contact. I invoke the right of parley. All military action must cease for 72 hours while diplomatic solutions are attempted. Any species that violates this accord will be expelled from the Galactic Council and marked as hostile." The fleet had to stop. The ancient accord was older than most current civilizations. It was sacred law. Breaking it would make them outcasts. Admiral Crix slammed his fist on his console, but he stopped the attack. For now, in the void, Daeho was dying. His vision was darkening. His lungs felt like they were freezing from the inside. But he stayed in position, his body a fragile barrier between violence and understanding. The dragon watched this human sacrifice himself not for victory, but for the chance at peace. For the possibility of conversation, for the hope that wisdom might still prevail. "Why?" the dragon asked, its voice soft now, all thunder gone. "Why would you die for this?" Daeho's lips were turning blue, but he smiled. "Because someone has to show them a different way. Because strength is not just about surviving. It is about what you are willing to sacrifice so that others might understand." The dragon's massive form shuddered. Energy that had been building for an attack dissipated. The terrible glow faded, and then the dragon did something it had not done in 3 million years. It made a choice outside its programming. The dragon's avatar reformed around Daeho, but this time it was different. The avatar expanded into a protective sphere, creating atmosphere, warmth, life support. It caught Daeho as he fell, cradling the dying human in arms that could have crushed planets. "No," the dragon said. "Not like this. You do not die for me. Not when you are the first being in millions of years to offer kindness instead of violence." The dragon's true form moved. Reality bent and warped as power older than civilizations focused on one fragile human body. The cybernetic components, the same ones that had been a prison for millions of years, now became tools of healing. Energy flowed into Daeho, repairing the damage, warming the frozen flesh, bringing him back from the edge of death. Daeho gasped, air filling his lungs again. Warmth returned to his limbs. He was alive. "You saved me," he whispered. "You tried to save me first," the dragon replied, "even though you knew it would kill you. Even though you had no weapons, no power, nothing but your willingness to stand between violence and its target. Do you know what you have done, Daeho of Earth?" Daeho shook his head weakly. "You answered my question. Not with words, but with action. I asked what you fight for, and you showed me the truth. You do not fight. You protect. You sacrifice. You choose understanding over victory." The dragon's voice was full of wonder. "In 3 million years, you are the first. You passed the test." The galaxy was silent. 200 civilizations watched as the dragon cradled a human in its arms like something precious and fragile. The monster they had feared for centuries was gentle. "The test is complete," the dragon announced, its voice reaching every world simultaneously. "Humanity has proven that evolution is possible. That wisdom can overcome the instinct for violence. That understanding is more powerful than any weapon." The dragon's massive form began to glow, but not with the light of weapons. This was different, softer, like the light of a dawn after an endless night. "I am going to share the truth now," the dragon said. "The truth I have carried for millions of years. The progenitors left gifts for the galaxy. Technology beyond your imagination. Knowledge that could heal every wound, solve every problem, unite every species. The locations are encoded in my memory. I am transmitting them now to all council. Worlds. Data streams flowed from the dragon into the quantum. Network. Coordinates. Instructions. Warnings. Wisdom from a civilization that had learned to transcend war. But understand this, the dragon continued. These gifts come with a warning. The progenitors gave you this not because you are perfect, but because one of you proved you can be better. Use this knowledge wisely. Remember Daeho's sacrifice. Remember that the strongest choice is often the choice to put down your weapons and talk. Hee-Jin watched the data stream into Earth systems. Subin saw technology that would take human science 1,000 years forward in an instant. Every world in the galaxy suddenly had access to wonders they had never imagined. But the dragon was not finished. "My purpose is complete," it said. "The test has ended, and so I am free." The cybernetic components began to separate from the organic body. Slowly, gently, the prison that had held the dragon for millions of years came apart. The consciousness fragments trapped inside, the pieces of progenitors who had volunteered to guide the dragon, began to glow. Deho watched as forms of light emerged from the metal. Beings of pure thought, finally released from their pain. They looked at the dragon with love. They looked at Deho with gratitude. Then they faded, moving on to whatever exists beyond life. The dragon's organic body, freed from its technological cage, began to shrink. The massive 3-kilometer nightmare became smaller and smaller, until floating in front of Deho was a creature no larger than a horse, a dragon of pure living energy, beautiful and terrible and ancient. "What will you do now?" Deho asked. The dragon looked at him with eyes that were no longer burning with duty and pain. "I am going to rest. For the first time in millions of years, I can sleep. I can dream. I can finally know peace. Will you die?" "Eventually," the dragon said. "But not today. Today I am going to fly through the stars without purpose or duty. I am going to see the galaxy I have protected but never truly experienced. And someday when I am ready, I will let go, but on my own terms. Free." The dragon nuzzled Deho gently, an ancient creature showing affection to the being who had freed it. Then it spread its wings, no longer weapons but simply wings, and flew into the deep void. The galaxy watched it go. The terror of 3 centuries, now just a peaceful being seeking rest. Deho floated alone in the protective bubble the dragon had created for him. The escape pod with his grandmother's tea set drifted close. He pulled it in, opened it, and looked at the simple cups and pot that had begun a revolution. Captain Velkor's ship appeared, moving carefully through the debris field. "Human Deho, we are coming to retrieve you." "Thank you, Captain," Deho said. He was very tired. Dying and being brought back to life was exhausting. On the council station, Yijin collapsed in her chair, tears streaming down her face. Her friend was alive. The galaxy had changed. Everything was different now. Subin sent a message through the quantum network. "Brother, you are the most wonderful kind of crazy." Admiral Crick sat in his flagship, staring at the data the dragon had shared. Technology that could rebuild his empire 10 times over. Knowledge that could make his species the most powerful in the galaxy. And all of it given freely because a human with nothing but tea and kindness had asked the right questions. He felt ashamed. When Deho returned to the council station 3 days later, every species wanted to meet him. They called him hero, savior, genius. They wanted to give him medals and titles and rewards. Deho refused them all. "I am not a hero," he said at the assembly. "I just did what my grandfather taught me. I sat still. I listened. I tried to understand. Anyone could have done the same. But no one else did," Counselor Rixall said. "In 3 million years, no one else thought to offer kindness to something they feared." "Then maybe that is the real gift the dragon gave us," Deho said. "Not technology or knowledge, but a reminder. We spend so much time preparing for war that we forget to prepare for peace." The council voted to establish a new tradition. Every year on the anniversary of Deho's meeting with the dragon, every world would hold a day of listening. No weapons, no conflicts, just conversation. Trying to understand instead of trying to win. They called it the Day of the Tea Ceremony. Deho went home to Earth. He returned to his small village where his grandfather still tended the garden. The old man looked at his grandson and smiled. "You learned the lesson," the grandfather said. "I learned many lessons," Deho replied. "But the most important one, true strength is not in the sword but in understanding why the sword exists. And the greatest warriors are those who know when to put the sword down." Deho looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, a dragon was flying free, seeing the universe with new eyes. Somewhere out there, the consciousness of ancient beings had found peace. Somewhere out there, civilizations were using gifts of knowledge to build instead of destroy. "Grandfather," he said, "would you like some tea?" The old man laughed. "Always." They sat together in the garden, 2 humans on a small planet at the edge of the galaxy, performing a ceremony that had saved entire worlds. The tea was simple. The cups were plain. But the moment was perfect. and in the data transmitted by the dragon, in the knowledge shared freely with all species, was one final message that only activated when humanity accessed it. It read, "You asked me what I fight for. Now I answer. I fought for the hope that someone someday would prove that fighting was not necessary. Thank you for being that someone. May your species carry this wisdom to the stars. May you teach others what you taught me, that the bravest reply to violence is not greater violence but understanding. Rest well, human. You earned it." The galaxy had changed because one man brought tea instead of weapons, because one warrior chose listening over fighting, because one human understood that sometimes the most shocking thing you can do is refuse to be shocked into violence. And somewhere in the darkness between stars a dragon smiled and finally slept in peace.